This is going to be a video on wills, trusts, beneficiaries, bank accounts. So, a few things I want to say at the beginning. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not giving advice. I'm just letting you know what I've learned this last week. Laws might be different in your state, or the rules might be different in your state than they are where I'm at. What else is there? Sorry about the dryer in the background and the bad lighting. I don't have my tripod or my other camera with me now, so I'm on the floor. The angle's going to be a little weird, but that's okay. I just wanted to do the video to get some of this info out, and so I don't really have the whiteboard or anything I would normally be using, but that's okay. So again, this is not legal advice. I'm just giving you my comments, my education that I've picked up over the last couple weeks from 2 different bank employees and a financial planner, financial manager, financial vice president of a major corporation, and some of my own research. So this is for people that might be dealing with bank accounts related to trusts, and which is a situation I kind of needed to do some research on. So and I couldn't really get any good information. The information was really confusing, and nobody seemed to know what was going on. So here we go. I'm going to give you a few different examples. This might help with people who are dealing with estate planning, or who are dealing with maybe having to take care of a will or an executor to a will or a trust down the line. So I do hope my video helps. Please do thumbs up, subscribe, like, share, leave your comments. You want to donate to my channel, that would be awesome. Ask for my PayPal info. And so here we go. So what do I want to say? Mostly about bank accounts. So this is really awkward. I'm on an angle here trying to write on the floor. But let's say that you have, let's say that we have a father named Bill. Father is named Bill. Bill has 4 kids. We're just going to call them we're going to call them male 1, male 2, female 3, female 4. That's what Bill named his kids. So Bill has a bank account. This is where it gets kind of tricky, because I'm going to be talking about bank accounts related to trust or not related to trust. And this is really an important thing. Bill goes into his bank and he sets up a bank account. And he sets up the bank account under his name, Bill. That's his full Father Bill. So name is under Father Bill, and he's got his 4 kids, male 1, male 2, male 3, male 4. When he's doing the paperwork, the bank wants to know if he has any beneficiaries, people that he wants to leave it to. So when that happens, you have an option, depending on who you're dealing with. If you're dealing with banks, it might be a little different than financial institutions, but normally what happens is they want the beneficiary, and so you can say all of them are beneficiary, and each one is going to get a certain percent that equals 100. They also give you the option most of the time where maybe Bill likes his first male son, male 1, and he's not really so sure about the other 3 kids. So Bill could do a primary beneficiary listing to male 1 and a secondary to all of these, or a secondary, a third, or a fourth, but he could do a primary, so all of the money goes to male 1 after Bill dies. If male 1 does not, okay, get the dryers off, sorry about all the yelling. If male 1 happens to pass before Bill does, then when Bill is gone, these, if they were listed as a secondary, they would come into play next, because the primary is gone. So this is how it works with a bank when the account at the bank is under the person's name. You were given the option to do a beneficiary. Very important to remember, because it changes now if you have a trust. Maybe. Let's say that Bill, the marker's going dead. I'm going to need a new marker. I am back with this incredible setup and a new marker. So, let's see if this one works. Father Bill has a trust, a family trust. And let's call it Family Trust, the Father Bill Family Trust. 2019. Father Bill has the family trust of 2019. And in the family trust, he's got M1, M2, F3, F4, his kids. And so what he does in this trust is he says he wants to leave 25% to, let's make it easy, 25% to all of them. So the trust says 25% goes to all of the kids. It gets split up. And when Father Bill dies, the kids go over to the bank and they show the bank the trust. And the bank says, we don't care about the trust because the account was not in a trust name, it was in Father Bill's name. And therefore, the bank only cares about the beneficiary on the paperwork. They don't care about the trust because the bank account is not in a trust. It was not set up in a trust name. So the bank is going to issue the money based on what the beneficiaries are on the paperwork that the bank has. If he left it all to M1 as the primary, if M1 is not alive anymore, then they'll look at the secondary and they'll decide how it needs to be distributed. So that's really important to know. Because what we have now is we have a family that says, when Father Bill dies, we're going to go pull out the trust, and the trust says we're going to go issue the money this way. And so all of us are going to get an equal share according to the trust, and the bank says, no, we only look at the paperwork. A lot of people don't know that. Some of you might, but a lot of people really don't. So we're going to go a little further into this now before this marker goes out. You have the same situation again. We have the trust over here, the Father Bill Family Trust 2019. And, hold on, the dog's behind me. Sorry about interrupting this professional video with incredible lighting and paperwork and audio. Okay, so we're back to the Father Bill Family Trust 2019. This time the bank account is not set up under Father Bill. It is set up under Father Bill Family Trust 2019. Father Bill Family Trust 2019. So, under that, the bank might have beneficiaries listed on their paperwork. Now, this is really important because a lot of people are going to get caught up in this and might get messed over if they don't take care of this stuff. So the bank has it under the family trust. Father Bill dies, and let's change this now. Let's change this. Father Bill in the trust doesn't like his female kids and leaves 50% to the men. That's a 5-0. Okay. Leaves 50% to each male. And maybe the bank messed up. Maybe they filled out paperwork. They might have listed a beneficiary. And so everybody over here says, oh, cool. It's the opposite of what we just did. Oh, cool, we're going to get 25% because that's how it's split up in the beneficiary. Until you walk into the bank and you say, Father Bill died, and they say the account is set up under a family trust, so we don't care about the beneficiaries on our paperwork. Show us the family trust. Family trust says male 1 gets 50%, male 2 gets 50%, male or female 3, female 4 get nothing. Even though they were listed as 25% on the account, they get nothing because the family trust trumps. I don't like that word. The family trust is the priority when a bank account is set up under the family trust. The family trust is not the priority when the bank account is not set up in a family trust and it is set up under just a person's name. Then the beneficiaries take place. That's the priority over there. So what else did I want to explain? Okay, so if you're in a situation where Father Bill has this wonderful trust and he is leaving 50%, he's given up on the 2 daughters, wants nothing to do with them, doesn't want to leave them any money. He's leaving 50% to male 1, male 2. Then Father Bill decides, I don't like male 2 anymore. He's being mean to me. I don't like him. I want to leave all my money to male 1. So how does he do that? Well, we kind of run into a little tricky legal situation, and maybe not. What he has to do, he's got his money in this account that says it's a trust account. And so the trust is going to say 50-50 to the 2 males. So the option that he has is he goes to the bank and he sets up an account that is not listed in the trust. It's just listed under Father Bill. And then he has the option of listing male 1 as 100% beneficiary, or he could do whatever he wants. He could do male 1 100%, and he could do male 2 as secondary, or he could split it up however he wants. So what Father Bill is kind of doing is he is bypassing his trust without having to go and pay a lawyer to change it, or without having to legally write the document over again and get it notarized and certified and everything. If he wants to, he can open up another bank account with the account only in his name and not in the trust name, and then he can go back to the beneficiary part and decide what he wants to do. Now, and that's perfectly legal. There's no reason. The only problem you might have is one of these kids over here might say, male 1 manipulated Father Bill, and they don't like what he did, and they might take it to court, and then it's a big question, because usually a judge is going to say whatever was done while the person was alive, as long as it doesn't look like there was anything unethical or nobody was taken advantage of and the person had a sound mind, then what they wrote or what they did is how it's going to be, is how the court is going to rule. Unless there was something dirty that went on, then the court might say, no, you've got to deal with what happened in the trust. But normally the judge just wants to do what the person's last wish was, last will and testament, or what the person did with their bank account. And they could go over there and do this, and they could even write out a note, which could also be questioned, and they could say, a sound mind and body, and this is what I'm doing, and I don't like what I did over here in the trust, and I don't want to go to the lawyer, so I'm changing this, and then take it over to a bank and pay somebody to notarize the thing and hand it over to male 1, so that if he needs the document, he can show it. Or male 1 could also, to cover himself a little bit, he could send himself an email with full details, full exposure of what's going on and why it was done, and send it to himself and just leave it there. That way he's got the timestamps to show what he did, and if it needs to go into court, you could show a timestamp of when it was sent and the routing and all that, so it's kind of legit. The judge might not accept it, but at least you have some type of documentation. So what else do we have here? We've got the third thing, which is really, really, really important, that when I talked to a bunch of people, they only gave me partial info. So some people gave me info about if if it's a beneficiary, you don't have to worry about the trust. And then other people said, no, if the account is in the trust name, you need to worry about the trust. So that's where the confusion was. Some people said whatever's in the trust happens. Other people said if it's not in the trust, then the beneficiary happens. And other people said what I just told you. If it's in the trust, you worry about the trust name. And what it says, if the account is in the person's name, you worry about the beneficiaries, and the trust is kind of canceled out as far as the situation. So, one last thing that I want to bring up. Father Bill leaves the house and a bunch of other stuff in the trust. Now, this is where it's really important, and nobody told me this until the very end. Very important. So the house is going to go, the house is in the trust. The house is, when the house gets sold, it needs to go into an account with the trust name. Now, that's kind of weird to me because I believe that when the person passes, I'm pretty sure they make you shut the account off unless you have a joint account. I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute. But usually they make you shut the account. Sometimes they will do set up another account for the deceased, the account of the deceased, and keep it in the trust name. So why is it important to keep that account in the trust name? Remember what I talked about over here where I said Father Bill can go in there and open up another account. And that's right, there's something else I want to bring up. Father Bill, let me back up. Father Bill has this account. Now, if Father Bill sets up the account and he's the only person on it, he's got the beneficiaries, everything's cool. Makes it very easy for him to do what he needs to do. Let's say that when Father Bill opened up this account, he brought all 4 kids into the bank. And he set up a joint account. So all 4 kids signed on that account. Father Bill can't close this account until he brings all 4 kids into the bank and has them sign off on the account, because they signed to be a joint account member. And they need to sign to remove themselves. So Father Bill could really cause himself a problem. If these kids say, I'm not taking my name off the bank account, I'm staying on there, then he's got a big mess on his hands. So Father Bill can open up another account. Or if it's a credit union, he can open up another share and keep the same account and move the money into an account that is strictly a joint account, or an account only with his name, or a joint account with only one of the kids. So you got to be careful when you're setting up joint accounts, because somebody needs to sign to get removed from an account. Let's talk about setting up a joint account. Father Bill has an account. Now we're going to get into a little bit more tricky stuff. Father Bill has his account, and he's got, let's just say he's got 2 kids, male 1, male 2. He sets up an account, and he's starting to get old. Now, what happens when Father Bill dies? The bank is going to, you go into the bank, the bank's going to say, this account is shut off. You have outstanding checks, it doesn't matter. This account is now closed. And the bank makes that decision. You don't have a choice on it. So if you have outstanding checks, you're going to have to deal with that mess. If you want to keep that account open for some bills to get paid, you're going to have to deal with having a closed account and having to move everything over, start a new account. The way to get around that, and banks really like when you do this because it's a smart idea, Father Bill sets up a joint account with one of his kids, or all of them, but you set up a joint account with male 1. So now you've got the joint account. Father Bill, you got to trust that kid, because that kid can go in there and do whatever he wants with that money. But the advantage of doing this is that when Father Bill dies and male 1 goes into the bank and says, Father Bill died, the bank doesn't shut that account. The bank will list Father Bill as deceased, but that account remains open, giving male 1 the time and the option to pay the bills, to get the checks cleared, to get everything taken care of, and to move the money where he needs to. I don't know if that becomes a deceased account or an account in the estate of, I don't know how that's done, but it's a really good thing when you have an elderly person, or a person who's not going to be able to manage the stuff, to have a joint account so that somebody can go in there and take care of things. Now, this is where you run into another tricky problem. There's just so much involved here. So, Father Bill has this account. I'm kind of kicking back on the floor now. Father Bill has this account, and he's got a joint account with male 1. If you have a joint account with male 1 cannot be a beneficiary. Cannot be a beneficiary, because he is a joint account holder. And so he automatically gets that money after Father Bill is gone. So if you have two kids, male 1 and male 2, what you could do is you could and male 1 is joint account holder. You could list male 2 as beneficiary, but what ends up happening is after Father Bill dies, that money goes to male 1. It does not go to male 2. And so if you want the money to be split between the two of them, male 1's going to end up getting all this money. The only way to get it over to male 2 or son 2 is you're going to have to gift that money over. Male 1's going to have to pay a massive amount of money in gift tax to give it to male 2. So there's really no easy way to do this stuff. But the advantage is you do. The banks will say you do want to have a joint account holder, even if you're dealing with this whole beneficiary mess. Figure that out later. So one way around it is to have two different accounts where you have or two different savings where one of your accounts is going to be under Father Bill, not in the trust. Remember, we're trying to avoid the trust. Maybe. But what you can do is Father Bill can go in there and say, joint account with male 1. When Father Bill dies, all that money goes to male 1, and set up another account or set it up in the trust where male 2 gets an equivalent amount of that money and male 1 doesn't, or set up another account only in Father Bill's name that is not a joint account, and when Father Bill dies, list M2 as the full beneficiary. That way, M1 is getting his share of the money under the joint account, and M2 is getting his money under the beneficiary part. Now, was there anything else that I wanted to say? I know, because this is just, there's so much that you learn in a short amount of time. There's a lot involved here. With joint account holders and beneficiaries, and is it in a trust, is it not in a trust, is it a joint account, is it not a joint account. So the final thing, and this is really important, and this is the final thing, so Father Bill leaves the house in the trust, and let's say that Father Bill had only one account. He had this one account, and it was in a trust. Now, if you go and you do this thing, you have an option. Like I said, some banks might remove the trust on the account if the what is it? The executor and the person who has the trust and the person who's the executor, if they're both inside the branch at the same time, they might remove the trust. There's a good chance they will. So, is that a good idea? Yes and no. It's a good idea because it allows you to do this. It's a dangerous idea if the house or anything else, which is going to be in the trust, is in the trust. Because when you sell the house, you're going to sell the house is in the trust. The only way that that money can transfer to you is in the bank account that was set up in the trust name at the beginning, or when you set this whole thing up. You've got to have a bank account in the trust name. So if you go in there and cancel and pull the trust name off of this account, you're in big trouble because you can't transfer this money. I don't know what legally happens. You cannot transfer money that's coming from a trust into a non-trust bank account. So the important thing is you always need to keep one bank account opened in the trust name. And if you set up a trust, you should have a bank account in the trust name. Always keep one of them open. That's the most important thing. So if you go in here and you want to avoid the trust stuff, your best option is either to open up another account and leave the account with the trust name. You can't, remember, you can't close this account if it's a joint account, because you can't call one of your kids and say, sign your name off of this. They're not going to do it. So, as I said before, your options are you set up another account, move the money into that, and leave the account that you've got open with those names on it, with the joint account kids' names on it, and just shuffle your money over to the new account. Or you can also remove, if he has two accounts, if Father Bill has two accounts, go in there and maybe you want to remove the trust from this one account and keep the joint accounts like you had originally, and go in and open up another share or another account and move the money, but leave the other account that's already in the trust name alone. Do not shut that. So I think I've explained a lot of stuff. It's very confusing. I know I talk fast. If you have any questions, leave comments, leave questions. Share this. This will probably help a lot of people. It took me a long time to gain this info. So let me shut off the camera and I'll come back in 2 seconds. That was a quick 2 seconds, and it was 2 seconds. So to try to recap everything as best as I can really quickly. If you have a trust, that's what this is all about. If you have a regular bank account and the bank account is in, let's just use the father example now. If your dad has a bank account in his name and it's only in his name, and he wants to leave the money to the kids, then he fills out the form at the bank with the beneficiaries. And the money is going to go according to the beneficiaries. If he has a trust, but the bank account is still in his name and not in the trust, then the bank money will go to the people dependent upon who is on the beneficiary forms at the bank. If the bank account is in the trust name, then the beneficiaries do not matter at all. Everything is decided based on what is in the trust. If you have a bank account with a parent or whoever it is who is getting older, the wise thing is to have a joint account, as I said, to protect you and them. It allows you to go in there and keep the account open when they pass, to manage it a little bit. Otherwise, you're going to have to go into the bank, show them the trust. They're going to have to review the trust, make the decision what happens, and then go from there. So the joint account is the smartest thing you can do. A lot of people don't know that, don't have it, but it's a good thing to do. If you have the joint account and you want to remove somebody from it, they need to go into the bank and remove their name from that account, which could be a difficult problem. If you have more than one person that money in that bank account is going to, and you have a joint account, the money is going to go to the person on the joint account first. And unless that person passes, then it will go to the person on the beneficiary. So if you want to divide the money equally, then you need to figure that out with how it's written in the trust, or set up other accounts where you're not going to have a joint account holder, and make sure that the other person is listed as the sole beneficiary or the primary beneficiary. What else is there? Do not close all the trust accounts. Make sure that at least one trust account is kept open so that everything can transfer into there at the end. I do not understand the idea about the opening up account in the estate of, or I know a lot of times after somebody passes, all the money is moved into one account in the estate of, and then it's managed from there. So I think I've covered a lot of stuff in a very short amount of time. This video has probably gone really long, but it's really important that you manage this stuff. A lot of people, including myself, when I had to deal with this a long time ago, I didn't want to deal with it. You just don't want to deal with it. And the person who's doing it, they don't want to deal with it. Oh, it will all work itself out. We'll figure it out later. Everything's going to be fine. I already did a trust. You look at that. If you do a trust and you really don't like how it's going to be done in the trust, you need to go in there and change that trust, get them to go to a lawyer, get them to write a note and get it notarized that they're changing it, which is also usually a legal thing. Or go in there and do this thing with the banks so that you can move the money around and make sure that the money is not listed in a trust account, in a bank account. So the bank account's not in a trust name, and then you have more options to do what you want with the money and the beneficiaries. And again, like I said, it's also dependent on the joint account holder and first, primary, secondary. So very confusing until you listen to this a little bit and you go, oh yeah, now I get it. And again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not offering legal advice. I'm just letting you know some of the knowledge that I gained that's very beneficial. And you might want to contact a lawyer. You might end up in court even if you do all this stuff. You might have somebody in the family that just says, I don't care, that money was supposed to go to me, and it was promised to me, and I've got a note, and the note says that it's going to me. But even if they have a note saying the money's going to them, that note doesn't matter usually because the bank doesn't care about notes or trusts. If you have a regular Father Bill account over here that is not in the trust name, that's all the bank cares about, is that money is going to be issued in a check to whoever is on the beneficiary form. And again, unless that account is listed as in the trust, then it changes the whole picture. Very confusing. Death is definitely never easy, and the money fights and everything are normally going to be a nightmare unless everybody can work things out, or unless everybody's got enough money and they're not greedy and they don't care. So that's going to be the end of this. I'm going to post this thing right now. Again, leave lots of questions, comments, and I do control the comments on here. So if you leave anything rude or mean or insulting, it's going to get reported. And if you leave something valid that is beneficial to everybody, then I will approve it. So thanks for watching. Do that thumbs up, subscribe, like, comment, share. And if you want to support me, as I said, ask for my PayPal info, and you can leave an awesome donation if you would like to. Thank you.